Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, April 11th, and we will preface the show that Peyton and I are recording here on Thursday. We do record on Thursdays, pulling back the curtain on how this stuff works too. But it is early afternoon, so if anything big happens, there will probably be a cut right before quick hits. And not saying expect any portal entries or any commitments, but you never know. Just with two portals overlapping with college basketball and college football, stuff will come out. So if anything big comes out, Peyton and Jack will tackle that in between quick hits. But right now, let's start off with the commitment from Monday. For any of those that were listening on Monday's show, probably wondering, hey, why didn't they talk about Sebastian Mack? Of course, it did happen in the wee hours at 8 a.m. Peyton wasn't even awake yet. I wasn't even awake yet when this happened. But Sebastian Mack is the third commitment for the Missouri Tigers. Back-to-back days coming right after Luke Northweather announced his pledge to the Tigers from coming over from Oklahoma, returning to Mid-Mo. First guy not from Mid-Missouri. He's originally from Chicago, moved to Nevada to play high school basketball. And one of the first things that just jumps off the page, Peyton, about Sebastian Mack is just the way he plays. I think that's the one thing everyone has been talking about. He's a very aggressive guard. He'll get in your face. He'll draw technical fouls. And we have a close friend, Luke Magnanti, who's been on the show before, a friend from KCOU back in the radio days. And he's talked about that too. But right when you saw the name, Peyton, and he had a Zoom call, he was very tied to the Missouri Tigers leading up to his commitment. I mean, what were you just kind of expecting, and what kind of made you excited about Sebastian Mack joining that backcourt?
Well, yeah, because I remember you asked me, like, if you could kind of pick out three of the names linked, like, who would you pick out of the guys? Like, this was a week or two ago now, but Sebastian Mack was one, because I do actually think, for one, high major players, I think, are the way to go when you can get them. I thought Tony Perkins was a great addition. Mark Mitchell was probably the biggest coup out of the portal in maybe the SEC last year. I mean, I don't know how he wound up at Missouri, but I'm very grateful for that. So more or less, I'm pretty pro high major transfers. Sebastian Mack, you look at the numbers and you maybe are like, you kind of pause a bit at the fact that he went from being a top, like a consensus top 100 recruit in high school to being he started every game for UCLA his freshman year. And then he did not start one game his sophomore year. But like you mentioned, our friend Luke Magnanti actually said that was like a mutual decision, the way he put it, between Mack and the team, just to kind of have him be more of a spark off the bench. I will say, kind of just one drawback from Mack is that like I've said a million times, Missouri, I still think, needs to get a 3-point shooter, like someone that can just shoot the lights out. That's not going to be Mack. Mack was a sub 30 3-point percentage guy last year. But a couple things that you look at, and I'm looking at Torvik, handy dandy Torvik, support Bart Torvik, all that. This is basically a Bart Torvik podcast. Two things that jump off the page immediately that kind of make you realize why Dennis Gates would like someone like Sebastian Mack. The free throw rate is off the charts good. He clearly is a guy that likes to bully his way to the rim a lot. I think that's what our good friend Luke Magnanti said as well. Can absolutely drive into the lane and get to the line. 57.4 free throw rate. That is, to put that into perspective, it has a bright green box around it on Torvik, which means very good. So you understand after last year why Dennis Gates would want someone like that. Another good thing about Sebastian Mack, and this is probably just a characteristic of pretty much most guys that play for Mick Cronin at UCLA, very good steal rate, 2.6 steal rate. That was actually down from his freshman year by just 0.2. So it's a pretty steady rate there for him. We know how Missouri likes to play defense. They like to get steals. They like to get out on the run. Very clear that Sebastian Mack ticks those two boxes that I think Dennis Gates was looking for. if you're looking for a player comp, compare that like just from this year's roster, the obvious one is Tony Perkins. Similar build, not quite as big as Tony Perkins, but similar play style, can definitely bully his way to the paint, get to the line. I think that those are things Tony Perkins did a lot of. Tony Perkins had a pretty decent steal rate this past year as well. So I think that's probably what they imagine for Sebastian Mack as well. The one thing I will say, probably not as good of a facilitator as Perkins was, probably looking at more of a guy that'll play the two. But again, I mean, Perkins played a lot when Ant Robinson was on the floor, and you were never going to have Perkins handle the ball over Anthony Robinson. I think Anthony Robinson, again this year, I've seen some people talk about moving him off the ball. I think that would be a really stupid idea. Anthony Robinson is an elite facilitator. He's a great shooter as well. Anthony Robinson does a lot of things well, but I think he needs to stay on the ball. I think he moves Sebastian Mack off the ball, kind of let him get downhill a bit, kind of work his way to the line. I think it's a pretty good fit. If Missouri can surround him with just another shooter and a true big man, not Luke Northweather, like an actual big man, I really think this is a very good addition for Missouri.
I will add in there, and I'm glad you said just running downhill, because I did talk to his high school coach, Jeff Kaufman, at Coronado in Henderson, Nevada. And one of the big things he said is just, that mentality of just being able to bully the ball and, run downhill on offense and defense, not afraid of anything. And I really liked this quote from him. And I won't read you my entire article that I'm putting out on Friday morning about him, just because don't really want to bore you too much. But he said, if you get in a fight, he's the guy you want on your side fighting with you. He's relentless. Not that he's a dirty or nasty or anything like that. When it comes to wanting to win and when it comes to wanting to play hard, he's a no-nonsense kind of player. And just with that same mentality, Kaufman said it was just like the perfect fit with Mick Cronin. He was someone that was going to hold Sebastian accountable, not let him, get too wild in what he was doing or, too wild in just his aggressiveness on the court. And he saw that was a perfect fit with Dennis Gates. When Sebastian Mack was in high school, one of the big schools coming after him was Florida State. Of course, Dennis wasn't there at the time, but that coaching tree also just kind of plays into effect about how they look over their players and how they take care of them. And that was a perfect thing for in Kaufman's mind. This is a guy that's going to do the same thing that Mick did, but just with Sebastian at Missouri. So he feels like he's going to have like more of a free moving play style this time, not really constrained to just maybe some of the offensive game at UCLA. And a big thing just about that too, in Mack's freshman year, he wasn't supposed to be a starter. Like that just wasn't supposed to be a thing. There was a lot of issues with UCLA's roster that year. I don't know if you remember, Payton. I mean, there was some like NIL issues, roster construction changes, injuries. Just UCLA just really wasn't the team it needed to be. And Sebastian Mack was third in scoring on a UCLA team. That doesn't happen all the time at UCLA, and that's a big thing. Kaufman told me, he was like, I think his exact quote was like, "For God's sake, it's UCLA. Like, you shouldn't be doing this, but you took advantage of it." That's what he did. So if you give him that opportunity, he'll run with the ball, and it just seems like a good fit for the Tigers, and he's just really going to fit in well at that 2 spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's obvious. Those are all quotes I kind of like to hear from like a high school coach. I do think like now I think it does. I think you can take a guy like Mack and still have a very good portal haul. I would have, in an ideal world, I would have probably preferred someone with like that is shoots a bit of a higher clip from 3-ball land. But again, you can't really expect to to get players that do everything super well out of the portal. And I do think Mack has a very easy fit on this roster. And plus, 2 years of eligibility left, at least. Lord knows he could have 4 by the end of his time here. I'm a big believer in kind of that second-year transfer bump, unless the players are just really terrible, like Jacob Cruz. I think Sebastian Mack could absolutely benefit from being in the system for 2 years. We have seen before, I mean, guys have come to Mizzou and seen a bit of a shooting bump. Sean East in his second year at Mizzou was an excellent 3-point shooter. Tamar Bates became a much higher volume and a higher percentage guy from deep. So maybe if you could work Sebastian Mack up to maybe hitting like 33 to 35% of his threes, you're looking at maybe like a steal out of the portal. But again, lots of what ifs there, but I think it overall is a very solid fit.
Sebastian Mack, the third portal addition so far for Missouri, joining Javon Porter and Luke Northweather. 2 spots to fill, and another guy came off the board that looked like a big target for the Tigers, and that was Kyan Evans, who was a Colorado State transfer. Second time Missouri's gone after North Colorado State guard. The first one didn't play with Kyan Evans, but nonetheless, Kyan Evans chose North Carolina. It looked like Iowa, Kansas were also some teams in there that were being reported. Payton, I mean, it seems like when you land a guy like Sebastian Mack and he's going to be in that starting rotation, you bring back Anthony Robinson. It really wasn't an opportunity for Kyan Evans to really crack that. I think you might want a little bit of a bigger wing into that starting 5. I feel like, it's not the biggest miss just because you got Sebastian Mack, you're finishing out that backcourt. But I mean, to you, I think it was a surprise that he chose UNC.
Well, yeah, I hadn't heard UNC, I think until like recently was more after like Xavier Lee from Princeton. Maybe they're still after him. I don't know, but they kind of came out of left field for me for Evans. You hear a lot of, you would obviously be more plugged in than me, but I saw maybe there was like some connection to Kansas. I think Iowa kind of was in the mix there. Minnesota was a natural team you'd maybe expect to see get in with Medved moving up there. But Missouri was in that one. I do agree. I mean, like once they got Mack, I think the fit made a little less sense. Evans is a great 3-point shooter. He's a pretty decent ball handler. I don't think he's a guy you'd move Ant off the ball for if they were to get him. But kind of a tough one. I would have liked to have seen someone that shoots like Evans. There's still plenty of options, but I do agree with you. I think they need to look at more of like a wing type to get that 3-point shooting. Evans is not anything close to a wing. I mean, 6'2", 175, that's not anyone you're going to put out at that 3 spot or anything like that.
And with that too, I kind of like hinted at John Tonje there for a second. He's a little bit smaller than Tonje, but maybe there is a world where there's an award that goes out to a Colorado State transfer guard who then like balls out at the next level. Of course, John Tonje was one of the best players in the country this past season at Wisconsin, and Kyan Evans is kind of on a similar trajectory going up to a Power 4 program with UNC. Looking at some other guys that are kind of off the board, and this one's a weird one, but we don't have to talk on it too much because there really isn't much information. But Mizzou Power Forward center Josh Gray started a handful of games, big rebounder, the horse, everything. I mean, we don't have to give an intro to Josh Gray. He entered the transfer portal. Got that confirmed, but he's out of eligibility. And this is kind of something you'll see, and you've already seen with a handful of players, but entering the transfer portal just in the case that there's an NCAA ruling changed or kind of allows another year of eligibility for these players that just ran out this season. Payton, for you, though, Mizzou's still looking for that big man, that 5 to join this team. In the case that there is something like this where guys come back, I know you would want a Tamar Bates or Caleb Grill to fill one of those last roster spots. But in any world, I mean, do you see Josh Gray coming back? Because he's a guy that said he wishes he spent more time at Mizzou. And do you think Mizzou would, even express that interest?
I mean, it is interesting because of like the whole I would have stayed more year. I wish I had more years to spend at Missouri comment. I do think Josh Gray was more useful than not. I know he was a bit of a mixed bag, especially offensively. And he didn't really fit the connecting big archetype that I think Dennis still is kind of looking for out of that 5 spot. I honestly don't expect him back. I don't expect the 5th year, the extra year of eligibility to be granted for one. I think that's ridiculous, but I do find it. I know everybody was like, how is he even entering? Like, this is a thing that is happening all over college basketball. Guys that are out of eligibility are entering their names in the portals for the exact reason Josh Gray is, and that's to hopefully get the extra year. We're going to talk about a guy that is doing it that Missouri has contacted. But I honestly don't expect Josh Gray back because I think in an ideal world, they find someone that's a little bit more like you probably sacrifice maybe a little bit of the rebounding prowess just to get a little more of an offensive like threat. I think it's so important to have a guy down low that is just like very like a legit offensive threat next to Mark Mitchell. So I don't really expect Josh Gray back, even if they were granted an extra year and he is able to play another year. I would probably lean on the side of no, I don't expect Josh Gray back.
We'll move on to some of the guys that are off the board. pairing with Evans. I'm just going to run through him, Peyton, and then we'll come back just to the big name and talk about him. But Jaden Quintons did commit to Kentucky. Former Missouri target out of high school, was at Arizona State, had a very good year. Had a knee injury, so he's not really expected to be hitting contact or bumping into people until September, according to his dad. But he's going back to Kentucky. That was originally the school he chose over Missouri before Cal left for Arkansas. Another guy on there is Honor Huff. This was someone Jack really liked. Prolific three-point shooter at Chattanooga, but he narrowed his list down to Iowa, Pitt, St. John's, Vandy, and West Virginia as of this midweek. Another one on here, we talked about him a while ago, but it was Rasheed Jones, shooting guard at Coastal Carolina. He's going back to Coastal Carolina. He had some high mid-major offers and interest, especially Missouri and some other schools. But he's going back. You don't see that too often, staying at the mid-major level. And then Duke Miles was one Oklahoma guy, another Oklahoma one that Missouri reached out to, shooting guard. But he's heading to Virginia as of recently. But we'll just talk about Jaden Quintons. I mean, we don't really have to go into detail about the other ones. We've already talked about him. But in your mind, Peyton, I know it kind of felt like a long shot. The injury, a lot of money probably tied into his future as one of the best portal entries probably all time, just in college basketball terms of pure talent. But how did you kind of feel just when you kind of heard the news that he was going to go back to Kentucky or go to Kentucky for the first time?
The Kentucky thing is just kind of funny, when you really think about it. It's just like, well, what was that year at Arizona State really about then? If you were comfortable with Mark Pope after all, I'm sure the money was just as good back then as it is now for Jaden Quintons. But nonetheless, like you said, I mean, like it was always probably a long shot he'd come to Missouri, even though there did seem to be like a good relationship with the staff. Missouri is just kind of just not a target guys like this are really going to go after. Like guys like this are really going to be super interested in. I think that's what it is at the end of the day. It was always a dream. I think it would have been a really cool fit. I think it would have been fun. But I'm really not that surprised at all by it. There's a lot of risk with it, with the injury, with the money. I still will go on record as to say I think Jaden Quintons is probably worth that risk. But it is a bummer. Still back to the drawing board. We'll see what Dennis Gates and co have planned for that big man position.
With two roster spots to fill, a couple more guys that just kind of picked up interest from Mizzou this past week. Brendan Housen, who played this past year at Kansas State, played his first 2 years with Villanova, but 10.9 points per game, 2.5 rebounds per game in 1 year with the Wildcats. And then Eddie Lampkin, who Peyton hinted at earlier, Syracuse center, been around the block. I mean, he's been with a couple teams now. I think TCU is in that conversation, Colorado. So he's looking at year 6 if he does get that last year of eligibility, center for the Syracuse Orange. Peyton, out of these two, I mean, anything really jump off the page? We don't really have to talk about Lampkin.
Housen's intriguing a little bit, just because very good three-point shooter. Thing about him is that's like all he does is shoot threes. I mean, I think he attempts like 8 field goals a game and 7 of them are threes, something like that. Pretty good shooter across all 3 years at the high major level too. So, I mean, that'd be intriguing. He's a little undersized, I think, to be like a true wing. 6'4", 205 isn't small, but it's like good for a guard, probably not great for a wing. So it's still not a perfect fit, but it is intriguing. Like I would not be upset by this at all. Torvik actually had him as, I believe, their second best player, Kansas State this past year. Second best player this past year, like better than guys like Coleman Hawkins, Doug McDaniel. They had a lot of big additions in the portal, and this guy wound up being the second best player on an admittedly disappointing Kansas State team, but still interesting to me that wound up being the case.
I know the Texas Tech staff has changed since then. He's from Amarillo, in that panhandle, northwest side of the state, northwest corner. But he was a Texas Tech lean for a while before he chose Villanova. There were some future casts expecting him to go there on Rivals.com a couple of years ago. So maybe that team kind of gets thrown back in there, getting closer to home for that last year of eligibility. But Eddie Lampkin, Syracuse Orange, up and down, college career kind of interesting. Everyone will say like, get a job. I mean, if he's going to make more money in college basketball than probably anywhere else. So just in that kind of conversation with Josh Gray. Last one here, Peyton, just before we throw it over to quick hits or if there's any other news that kind of happens later this evening. Tyon Grant Foster, small forward from Grand Canyon. No reported interest for Mizzou, but our good friend Sam, who is an active or avid listener, avid watcher of the show, dropped him in our replies just as a name that he's watching, a name that he likes. Payton, I know we talked about it beforehand. We were going over the script for the show. You didn't seem too enthused about Kyan Grant Foster. I mean, what about him probably just doesn't bode well for Missouri?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan, I'd say, of this one. Kyan Grant Foster, I mean, he's coming up from the WAC. He is kind of that wing that you'd look for, 6'4", or 6'7". I mean, like, he's got wing size. Former Kansas player, by the way, so that's kind of an interesting one. He spent 1 year there, then went to DePaul, and has spent the last 2 years at Grand Canyon. Great free throw rate, really good block and steal rates, even solid rebounding rates, but the usage is absurdly high on Grant Foster, and there is just no efficiency. His effective field goal percentage is 44.3%. I don't think that's very good. 23.2 from deep. I think that's really tough, especially as someone on the wing. I think Dennis Gates going to be looking for a guy on the wing that can knock down threes. And I don't think it's a great fit with Missouri.
Yeah, just, overall, I think one of the biggest things is like, you want to put a lot of this, you don't know how much money is left, but in your mind, you're thinking, not a lot of NIL funding probably went to Luke Northweather. Maybe not even a lot more went to Javon Porter. I think a handful of what you've seen so far has gone to Sebastian Mack. Most certainly just with the guys that have entered or joined the Tigers in the past couple of weeks. You think a lot of this funding and a lot of, there's still court hearings going on of, how revenue sharing is going to work the next couple of years. And just like Eli Drinkwitz, we don't even know. We have no idea really how a lot of this stuff is going to work or how it works right now. So you probably expect, a lot of this, money in funds to probably go towards a big man or a dominant wing. That's something that needs to be a part of this offense next year. We always talk about, maybe a guy at the top of the key that can help facilitate, Josh Gray, not really, dribbling the ball, but able to put his hands up and facilitate a pass here or there, or someone that puts their back to the basket, which we really haven't seen in Dennis Gates' tenure with the Tigers. So, yeah, Kyan Grant Foster probably hasn't fallen into those categories of guys Mizzou's reached out to, just because he probably isn't a premier position for what the Tigers are looking for right now. Payton, I mean, final thoughts, anything else you've been kind of stewing over just in regards to the transfer portal?
No, I mean, the needs are still the same. I think it's kind of just waiting to see what the big man plan is, because it really can't be Luke Northweather. That would be a disaster. And I don't think you can rely on someone like Trent Burns, who is very skinny. And I'm going to be honest, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how much he plays out on the wing rather than just as a straight center. And Peyton Marshall is a work in progress. I don't think you can rely on the in-house options currently. So I think they got to still get one there, and I think they really need to get another 3-point shooter. I think that's got to I still kind of feel like that's got to be priority over a big, because this team, we've seen what Missouri looks like when they just don't have great shooters. And I mean, they actually had decent shooters in the 2019 year. Sean East was great. Tamar Bates was a great 3-point shooter. Nick Honor, I guess, took kind of a step back in that department, but still, I think shooting is paramount for this team.
Just going to do it just for our basketball talk. We'll throw it over to Quick Hits. The three of us will be there. Jack couldn't make it for the start of the show. If not, maybe you'll see Jack and Payton with any breaking news, anything else that we might have missed at the start of the show. So we'll see you on the other side.
Okay, quick hits time. We'll finish out the show. Kenny, start you off. Jersey of the week. What is your jersey of the week this week, my friend?
Missouri has its second portal entry for the spring window. Of course, that doesn't open until a week from this past Wednesday. So Ja'Kai Lang will be entering the transfer portal. He was a 3-star in-state guy from Troy, right outside St. Louis. And just with the defensive end room just being a little bit more stacked this season, getting guys back from injury and then adding a couple guys in the transfer portal just really wasn't an opportunity to be a real contributor, and he would just be kind of pushed down the depth chart. Got a lot of positive reviews from current and former Missouri Tigers on Instagram that kind of, said go and do your thing. And they were very supportive of him. Another one was Brian Early, who's done this a couple of times with Serenier Tunkara and Jalen Brown most recently in December. But he said, high character, smart and dependable, looking for an opportunity to somewhere he can play a bigger role. Nothing but love for Ja'Kai Lang and appreciate everything he did for us in 2024. It just doesn't really come as a surprise too much if you really wanted to think about this transfer window and some of these guys that might be leaving. I heard a lot of positive things about him from even current recruits. So guys that are maybe 2 or 3 years younger than him, still in high school, that like him just from playing Pee Wee football or playing other sports in the St. Louis area. So he's a guy you just kind of wish the best of luck to. He didn't not really leaving on any bad terms, but just wants an opportunity to be a better contributor.
Drink said, I think he's expecting up to 8. So we'll see how the rest of that shakes out. Lang was someone I was kind of hoping would have a bigger role. He did have a few moments last year, but yeah, like you said, Kenny, I mean, just wasn't going to have the playing time I'm sure he wanted.
The one thing I learned the best thing I learned from this is that he was second in sacks last year for Mizzou with 3. And I saw that and I was like, I think it just might be tackles for loss, but even that shouldn't be that many. Do you guys want to guess who's first?
In sacks last year?
Yeah.
It was Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
It was Johnny Walker, 9.5. And then Ja'Kai Lang was second with 3.
That's pretty shocking.
Yeah. That gotta get that swarm defense going again. Yeah, we'll see who else enters the portal. Like Kenny said, when that window opens, it'll get pretty busy, obviously, on both fronts. We think for Mizzou. Payton, your jersey of the week, sir.
My jersey of the week, Missouri women's basketball is on the board in the portal. They have signed Sanaya Tyler out of the portal. She was a 3-year guard at Kentucky. She's from the St. Louis area. She's from Florissant. If I'm butchering that name, sorry, but I'm pretty sure that's right. 3-year player at Kentucky. She started 12 games in the 2023-24 season. Pretty decent shooter from 3, shot 36% last year. She did see her minutes reduced quite a bit, just to 12.3 minutes, but definitely a solid, I think, first edition, someone that's coming closer to home, has been around the SEC for a good number of years now, so kind of knows what to expect. We'll see what happens. I mean, Kelly Harper had a fun tweet to do, like her fun bat signal was just Dennis's bat signal, and she tagged him in it. So
she unretired it.
She did, because Dennis has seemingly retired it. But so yeah, first edition, I think it's a solid one for Missouri. She kind of had her minutes reduced just because Kentucky was a pretty good team. They had a couple really good guards come in, so not a huge surprise to see Sanaya Tyler probably looking for more minutes.
She played at a pretty good program too in Incarnate Word. There's a middle school, but it's not that one. This is like its own academy, and they've had like a pretty stable like high school staff there for a couple of years, maybe even over a decade now. And so there's a lot of just hype around that program. So it is kind of a big pickup. And I was looking at the schools that she chose Kentucky over during her recruitment. Arizona State and Tennessee. Mizzou wasn't even mentioned in that top group.
I mean, Tennessee, if that was a few years ago, that would have been Kelly Harper. So makes even more sense.
Yeah, definitely someone seems like she has some familiarity there. Kenny, I'll piggyback off that. 1,174 points, 401 assists in her high school career. I was digging into that too, just because it's always nice to get some in-state like products, I guess, back as well. You never know. That's why coaches keep those connections. Clearly, it feels like Kelly Harper probably made one here, and so yeah, hopefully she can be a contributor. See those minutes go back up. Payton, I know there's some other Mizzou women's basketball as well on the opposite end.
So two departures recently. Tamila Brown rather is in the portal. This one I have absolutely no idea how this one works. This would be like her 6th team in like 7 years or something. It might be one of those we've seen a lot of players just enter their name in the portal in case the NCAA grants another year of eligibility. I'm going to be honest. Drinkwitz said he has no idea what's really going on with this right now. We are just as in the dark. Delilah Brown is no longer a Tiger, though, is basically the gist. She wasn't a huge contributor last year. I think she had around 5 points a game. Not a terrible player. It was just not really anyone. It's not a player I think anyone is going to be torn up about losing. The other departure, though, definitely a big one that I think a lot of people were probably hoping to see stick around, and that's Ashton Judd. Judd was coming off her third year as a Tiger. She was a big-time freshman. She had a lot of great moments her freshman year. Was a really great three-point shooter in particular. Those numbers dipped a little bit from her freshman year as kind of the volume went up. They had to rely on her to be like a much bigger scorer. But it's still a player that, 11 points a game last year. Pretty decent assist to turnover numbers, 5 boards. Probably someone I would have expected to maybe see stick around. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think if Missouri can keep Grace Slaughter, that's probably the big one that they'd want to keep around from last year. But definitely tough to see Ashton Judd kind of look for maybe greener pastures elsewhere.
That's up to 6 departures now, Peyton, right? I think we're kind of excluding Brown from this conversation.
Yeah, that's about right. And this is the only one that I've kind of been like, ooh, that's kind of a tough one to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely stings. She's a big time contributor, like you said. She actually did it too. Her scoring dipped a little bit, like you said. Minutes dipped a little bit, but still started 28 games, started all 30 a year prior. But yeah, unfortunately it stings, but this is sometimes just what happens when a new regime comes in. Obviously, like Peyton said with Slaughter, hopefully it's not a complete clean house situation, but it's not the same coaching staff. Players can't really be held in a negative regard for wanting to go somewhere else when their coach leaves. So this will happen. Obviously, Ashton Judd will probably make another team very happy, but it's a bummer that she couldn't stick around for Mizzou. But we'll see what other movement and shakeup. Well, Kelly Harper, should she get her own bat signal? I do like the unretiring of Dennis's, but I don't know.
She should
maybe
get her own, I think.
Yes, I think she's gotta maybe morph it into something. You gotta theme it out a little bit.
I think it entered the transfer portal. Dennis's did, and she picked it up. That was her first pickup, actually.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So they got Tyler and Dennis's bat signal. Huge additions for Mizzou women's basketball. My jersey of the week, a little bit of a fun one here. I'm giving it to Nate Noel. This popped up on X.com. The Everything Happened All Happens on X the other day. It looks like he had a pre-draft visit with the Chiefs. Someone took a screenshot of his Instagram with the Chiefs facility. Shout out Show Me Football, Show Me FB on X if you want to follow them. Tweeted that, said added Noel as a speedy, productive running back who would make for an intriguing day 3 selection or UDFA pickup. That feels like a fair range for him, but it'd be pretty cool to see the pipeline from, KC. Saw it with Nick Bolton, see if maybe they take a chance on a guy in Nate Noel. But yeah, obviously we'll see how he does in the pro circuit. Didn't the Chiefs? I was trying to think of it as I was talking. Didn't the Chiefs tweet about a bunch of prospects? And there was it Luther Burden? They had like a little feature about. I think it was. They had some in-house reporter like do a little breakdown of a bunch of prospects, and I think Luther Burden was the first one, which is also pretty cool. But yeah,
I do think I saw that, but now the Chiefs haven't been shy about kind of at least taking a flyer on some Missouri products as UDFAs. Martez Manuel was there. Boo Smith, I believe, was there for a spell. So definitely could be one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think Martez was probably the one that we always remember just with the videos that he kind of had. He had like a bunch of press conferences too right after, and it just didn't really last long for Martez Manuel. I always found it interesting too, Jack, when, like they have in-house reporters. It's kind of like MLB.com, like NFL.com has ones too, where someone kind of just follows around. But I think they're actually like employees of the team. But right. they'll get together like a bunch of just draft boards that they find or just mock drafts and just kind of tweet them out, and the team will tweet them out too, like who's out there, almost like teasing, even though they have no idea who they're going to take yet. I just always kind of find that funny. I'm trying to find it right now. I don't find the exact tweet about it, but it might have been the actual reporter that posted it.
Yeah, maybe it was. I just remember the Chiefs, like, and I thought that was interesting too. I was like, wow, they're doing like a breakdown of
Oh,
the
yeah.
possible draft prospects.
I found it. So Kansas City is doing a series right now. The most recent one I found is the tight end spotlight. So they're looking at tight ends in the draft this year.
Okay. Yeah, and I think they shouted out
Matt Mullen is the reporter.
That's their guy. That's their guy. So yeah, he did a little thing about Luther, which was just, it is weird, like in a good way. It's not like bad, but it's just funny to see, like you said, like a reporter and a team kind of interacting with it like that. It's like, oh, could they draft Luther? It is a tease. That would be, gosh, I wonder how high selling of a jersey that would be, a Luther Chiefs jersey. You'd be seeing so many people walking around with one of those if that worked out. Anyway,
I like no cap, and he's the main bird.
Sean Eastman bird of the week. I'm not here to talk jersey prices. Kenny, your Sean Eastman bird of the week.
Okay. I'm going to try to pull this bird connection off. You guys might not like it. Mizzou got a punter commit in John Butcher. If you follow me on Twitter, you knew about this days in advance before it was going to happen. So shout out Kenny Van Doren on that.
Shout out yourself.
Shouting out myself. Very humble, brag by myself. But no, John Butcher will be the second punter in the room for the Tigers this year. Grossmont College out there in California. John Butcher has been a California guy through and through, San Diego kid, San Diego product, committed to the Tigers. Really liked Eric Link, really liked Brock Olivo, the two special teams coaches, of course, Link being the coordinator and Olivo being the assistant. Visited this past week. I think we talked about it too on the show that he did visit. So it was kind of just in the works that was going to happen. And they just needed a second body in the room just with roster changes. You're at a 105 cap. I talked to, about, with someone today trying to figure out what the future of the walk-on position is right now. He is still listed as a preferred walk-on, but there's a 105 limit. All those guys can be issued scholarships. So we'll see kind of how that goes. But my connection though, is a griffin, and hear me out. I know that's not a bird. It is a lion with wings. They have a mascot for some reason. That's an eagle, that I saw a photo of walking around campus. So that is my bird connection.
I can give you that one. I think I can yield that one. Payton, I defer to you. He's muted himself. Unbelievable. He can't even come to his defense. You know what? We're gonna ride this out. We're gonna let him crash out on the mute wallet because he unplugged his mic by accident. Kenny, I will give that to you. We'll get Peyton's report when he gets his mic plugged in. Yeah, John Butcher. We did talk about him visiting because I remember making the joke about the thing. Peyton, you're still muted, bud. He's still talking into the ether.
Am I back?
There he is.
He's back.
God.
Does a griffin count?
Yeah, I think a griffin counts, to be honest with you. I do. I don't know what happened to my mic, so apologies for that. This is a very professional show, if you can't tell. What I am very interested in is why Mizzou landed on a punter that averaged 39 yards a punt at a JUCO, and whose only offer that was public was the South Dakota School of Mines. Is there any way that you figured that out, Kenny?
You told me about the offer.
Well, I mean, how did Mizzou find him? I mean,
man, I don't really know. He did punt a lot. Like, I think it was 71 attempts last year.
Yeah, we said this. He had an insane amount of punts.
He told me, like, the thing that really, like, stood out to Mizzou was directional punting. The one big thing I always hear from punting coaches, if you haven't noticed, I talked to a handful of them, just special teams coaches, is that they always aim for numbers and out. And that's one of the biggest things, like, he was good at, was directional and negating returns. There is no net on there. And Peyton told me not to do this, to go find the net yardage. I didn't listen. I found it. No, I didn't find it. That would have been really hard to find the net yardage. But that was one of the biggest things, just negating that, and just the hang distance was just something that really stood out. So he has a good feel for the ball. You're not really expecting too much from him. He did spend 2 years. Theoretically, he has 4 or 5 more years of eligibility because he was a JUCO product. So he'll be around, probably with some good depth, see how he kind of does with the competition. But my full expectation is just Connor Wesselman is the punter moving forward, the guy they got from Stanford.
Why can't the answer just be trust Eric Link, Peyton?
Well, for one, sometimes it feels like he's recruiting by just throwing a dart at a board. And for two, the special teams unit has been drop dead terrible for like 4 years.
I asked that rhetorically, but I'm glad you answered it in the way it should be answered. But yeah, John. All right, my main bird of the week. Not my main bird of the week. Peyton's main bird of the week. Peyton.
My main bird of the week, pivoting away from the special teams talk, is going to be Drew Pine, because he has carried on a tried and true, what is becoming a forged legacy, and that is the pipeline from Columbia, Missouri to Bowling Green, Kentucky. Drew Pine has found his new transfer destination. He is going to the University of Bowling Green Falcons. That's the bird connection there. A falcon is obviously a bird. He's going to be the first quarterback under Tennessee State's former Tennessee State head coach and now Bowling Green State head coach. Why is his name escaping me? Eddie George. Eddie George is the new head coach at Bowling Green, and he has found his QB. Drew Pine, good for him. I mean, his legacy gets to be that one Oklahoma game at Missouri, and now he gets to go start. Hopefully his career winds up as fruitful at Bowling Green as it did for Connor Bazelak, because Bazelak tore the MAC up, let me tell you.
Beat Penn State for a half.
Yep. Was kind of close with A&M for a bit.
Yeah. Reaching back to the big time.
I did ask this question on who's next. I saw some people say Sam Horn. I don't think that would be the next one in line, just for the fact that for some reason, somehow, this is just still in that era of college football. Drew Pine has 2 more years of eligibility, so I don't know if Sam Horn would follow and go to a spot where he's not the starter in the case that he doesn't play a good amount this upcoming season and really just sits behind Bo Pribula. Of course, we don't really know what's going to happen yet. But I was just looking through these replies as well. Someone, Joshua Mischief, who seems to be everywhere on Mizzou Twitter, he said, anyone know what happened to Aiden Glover? I don't know if I said this on the show before, but he was kind of still weighing his options. There were some like JUCO offers out there. Still nothing from him. Tommy Locke from Kobe Greenberry, who I believe has replied to us before, possibly Sam Horn. Sam Horn again. But yeah, that's just it just seems to the consensus from a lot of people, Sam Horn, which I do not think will happen.
He misspelled pine. It's Pyne, not Pine. Zay.
Maybe he's talking about a different pine.
A literal pine is.
I don't think he is.
Bowling Green. Didn't we? No, I was gonna have a thought, but I realized it was wrong. Never mind. Yeah, this is the congrats to Sam. I said congrats to Sam Horn. I'm already manifesting it. Congrats to Drew Pine.
Congrats to maybe Aiden Glover.
Maybe Hayden Glover, maybe Sam Horn. A good reminder, Payton. I totally forgot Eddie George took that job. That is exciting. I hope he has some success. I've enjoyed the former players getting head coaching jobs and like who has like popped up in the, I feel like Dion kind of set this recent trend of guys taking over those jobs. So hopefully Eddie George and the Falcons and Drew Pine can make some waves in the MAC. My main bird of the week is going to Rob Summers. Of course, the one-time Mizzou assistant from last season. He got a new job, and he is taking over at Cleveland State, of course, where both he and Dennis came from. Peyton, I can see you have a perplexed look on your face. You're probably wondering what the bird connection is. Well, I'll tell you. Before he came to Mizzou last season, he spent 2 years as the associate head coach at Miami of Ohio. Of course, the Red Hawks. There's your bird connection. But yeah, this is pretty cool. Obviously, he was on staff with Dennis from 2019 to 2022 when they were having all the success at Cleveland State that got Dennis the Mizzou job, rejoined him on the sidelines last year, and is now going to take over Cleveland State himself. So, hopefully he can bring the Vikings to some horizon heights like Dennis did. Before him, Kenny pulled up to like his entire resume. Started at Glenville State, James Madison, a couple stints there, was at Urbana as well before he took that assistant coach job under Dennis at Cleveland State.
Urbana is not even a school anymore. I found that interesting because I was trying to find a bird connection here and it said permanently closed on Google. So if it's still open and someone wants to come after me, it was Google's fault. Did not.
If any Urbana students are listening to this, please comment that your school is still afloat,
still kicking.
Yeah. Congrats to Rob Summers. This is a cool gig. Perhaps the Dennis coaching tree can start to sprout.
that it'll just take roots at Cleveland State or just Ohio and just that area in general.
It closed in 2020.
No.
Opening in
COVID.
1850.
COVID took our precious Urbana. Brutal. All right. Best things you learned, unless you have any other notes on Summers. Peyton, best thing you learned.
Best thing I learned this week, former Missouri Tiger Noah Carter was named MVP of what league is this? Does anybody know? He was named MVP of his overseas league. I don't think any of us even looked it up because we were so perplexed by this. But
I would like you to try and say the team name.
You just say NBL.
It's just the NBL? Okay.
What it says on there.
Sezoni.
It's the Czech League, by the way. The Czech League.
The Czech League. Good for Noah Carter. He announced his MVP himself on Twitter. I'm sure it was, X. I'm sure it was announced elsewhere on X as well. But Noah Carter, he's still kicking. He's winning MVPs in the Czech League.
19.8 points, 5.6 rebounds, 2.3 assists per game last season with that said team, with that Czech basketball team. I think it is just called the Czech Basketball League, why is it the NBL though?
National Basketball League.
Well,
you're right. It is the National Basketball League of the Czech Republic. So yeah, it is. It is just the NBL. So congrats.
Also, Noah Carter liked our Zeet reply to him.
Our Zeet.
The Zeet was the spreadsheet predicted this hashtag Team Curls. Many of you will remember that Kenny kept a spreadsheet of Noah Carter's stats by hairstyle. It was quickly kind of forgotten about because the team was so bad.
Friend of the show, also.
Yeah, he's been on the show. He was on the show with Ben Sternberg the first time Ben Sternberg was on.
Do you think he's the first former Mizzou player to win an MVP?
That's a good question.
In any sport?
No, like first former Mizzou basketball player to win an MVP.
That is a great question.
I kind of want to do that research.
Somebody had to have won one overseas at some point, and I have no idea of how you could ever even research that.
Honestly, Jimmy McKinney might have. No, never mind. He was just an all-star when he played in Germany.
If anyone is listening and knows of any other former Mizzou basketball MVPs, I would like to know if Noah Carter is the first one. None are coming to my mind at the moment. I think DeAndre Golston was an all-star in I forget where he was playing first.
For the Packs or whatever?
Yeah. I think he made like an all-star thing. Always good to see the first class of dentist products thriving.
Oh, I thought I found one. Kareem Rush was an LKL All-Star Game MVP. I thought it was going to say MVP. I was so excited.
Oh, he's the All-Star Game MVP too. That's close. That's close. I want to know if there's
a little foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Best things you learned this week. Peyton, what did you learn this week?
Best thing I learned this week was Noah Carter. It's Kenny's best thing he learned this week.
Sorry, Kenny, best thing you learned this week. My brain is broken.
This might be the longest quick hits of all time, but the best thing I learned this week, and this might be one of our last ones talking about it for this season, but two final additions to the Mizzou women's basketball staff. Haley Hall coming in as the director of operations, and Michael Scruggs joining as the final assistant coach. I believe someone replied in our YouTube.
Someone did mention that, yeah.
Yeah, that there was going to be a fifth one because when Peyton and I were just doing a duo show, two-manner, we thought maybe that it was going to be capped at 4, but Michael Scruggs finishes out as the fifth assistant.
Yeah, Scruggs, I believe, comes from Georgia Tech. So I believe some of the stuff I was reading, a lot of people like his recruiting. So good. He was a student manager under Pat Summitt. So again, the Tennessee connections for Kelly Harper, just basically they're building prime Tennessee basketball at Missouri. That's going to be my take. No notes. He had coaching roles with Loyola Chicago, LSU, Cleveland State, Sanford, and Chattanooga.
Cleveland State, another one,
and Purdue. So lot lot of resume here for Scruggs. That should do it for the staff. It's good to see them have 5 assistants. I think that does show they're really, really investing into the program. Hopefully, it's a bit more of a facelift than what we saw for the baseball program when they made a coaching change. This feels a bit better. There's more resources being put into assistants and stuff. So I'm optimistic. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
This is just one of my favorite parts of like this new era where you've got, Hall coming in as the director of basketball operations. Like, you have these people coming in who have like real world business experience now, because that's what you need in this era. Like it says in her little bio, she was the marketing coordinator for the USA softball Stand Beside Her tour. Like, and now is the director of operations for Missouri women's basketball. Like, it's so interesting. You can look into a lot of these people now, like, especially I look at football, like a lot of these GMs and director and player personnel are like people with like business experience, or like more like, I guess, private sector experience, because that like helps them, get deals done and figure out how to, work with like the money that's in college basketball now. So it's interesting. So hopefully she's obviously going to play a big role, it seems like, behind the scenes.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly the parallel I was going to draw. I mean, like, especially with more and more schools getting GM roles, or like you said, like just play, like basically a front office for college sports. I know Missouri has not really embraced that yet. They don't have one for any sport, like a GM for any sport. I think Drake even mentioned like he's not sure if they'll get one, because again, he has no idea what's going on in the world of college athletics right now. So but I do think that's interesting to see, like, someone with a business background kind of being brought in for the director of operations role.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch moving forward, for sure. And yeah, especially college football should really figure out what's going on so that the Missouri head coach knows. But that's another conversation entirely. My best thing I learned this week, it is obligatory: death, taxes, and Helen Hugh. Missouri gymnastics is going back to the NCAA championship semifinals. They will compete in Fort Worth, Texas. They did it in clutch fashion. Helen Hugh, her beam routine clinched it. They edged out a win over Auburn, also beat Arizona to finish second in the group. Oklahoma ended up winning it. But their second place finish does mean they go to the semifinals, which is very exciting. Helen Hugh just continues to be an absolute machine. I don't know. I mean, carrying Mizzou through, I'm not necessarily carrying, I guess, but just stepping up to help Mizzou advance again. And yeah, in the semifinals, the notes on that too, if you want to watch it, it's on ESPN2, April 17th. So a week from this past Thursday. Number 2, Oklahoma will be in that group, obviously. Number 3, Florida, and number 12, Alabama. So an all SEC semifinal, which, typical for gymnastics. But what a season for Mizzou gymnastics, fellas. This has just been electric. Helen Hugh, like Kenny said, this maybe needs to be our first merch line, just death, taxes, and Helen Hugh. Make some sort of graphic.
We did a couple runs at merchandise. Nothing really came from it, but maybe if those calls coming in, this will be the shirt we request.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the SEC just kind of dominating. I think that's kind of just how it's always been. But I do know a lot of people are not thrilled that Missouri has to go against Florida, Oklahoma. Those are just 2 powerhouses. We'll see what happens. I mean, Missouri, this is like the second time I think they've made it to the NCAA championships. I do remember they made it a couple of years ago with like another really dramatic finish. I know, Kenny, you and I discussed, like, is this the Final Four or Elite Eight? We didn't know for sure. It's the Elite Eight. There's 8 teams here.
Yeah.
So
there's like another side. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another side. We'll see what happens. I mean, hey, Missouri's not going to be favored to advance, but on any given night, who knows?
It's really nice to see them, contending, in such a stacked SEC year on year. I feel like we see that in gymnastics, softball. It varies so much with Mizzou, because you've got like baseball where it's just that program just is clearly not at the level I won't get too into that sore subject right now, but you have some of these other sports where it's good to see Mizzou kind of competing and contending with how good the SEC is in some of these sports. So that's my.
I mean, considering the seasons wrestling and softball have had or did have, you could honestly make the argument that this is the premier program at Missouri at this point.
Yeah,
they have really not since Shannon Welker has taken over, they have been a rock. Basically, it's just what you're getting year in year out with them. You can't say the same, like you mentioned, like baseball. We might have to. It might be a post-mortem the next time we talk about them. That is historic stuff. That's all I'll say about it, and not in a good variety.
On the baseball topic too, I don't remember where it was. If it was on a message board or someone brought it up to me, someone in our comments section asking us to talk about baseball. And I said, hey, we'll get Pete Zimmerman on soon. We'll have an opportunity to talk with him. I don't really know if he wants to talk about the team right now. I know it's way gone since his time and, his coaches are gone, but it's just going to be the same thing you said last time. It's just this program has been banged up a lot with injuries, but at the same time, it's just probably not really gotten the funding that other SEC programs have. And it's just
not
in the
even
gutter. It's in the basement, of the SEC. And that's, it sucks probably for them, but kind of just where Mizzou is right now, just financially and what the kind of priorities are.
I believe I have the other rotation for the semifinal. I believe it's Michigan State, LSU, Utah, and UCLA. I think if I have it right, from what I'm looking.
5 SEC programs in that.
Yeah, crazy.
And 4 of them are making up an entire session. I mean, that's nuts.
There's a couple individuals too from there's Kentucky and Arkansas too. Have a couple of individuals. So even
individuals don't matter. It's team sport.
Lump that in even more. All right, that's all I have, gentlemen. Peyton, do you have a joke for us?
I sure do, guys. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. Guys, what kind of bagel can travel?
A plain bagel.
A plain bagel. Yes, Jack Molson. Well
let's
done.
go,
a
Jack.
Plain bagel.
It's rare I get them first, but I get them first sometimes.
A plain bagel.
I was thinking an everything bagel. Isn't that a type of bagel?
That was my first thought, like an everywhere.
Yeah, but that
bagel
doesn't apply to
something.
travel.
It's true.
Yeah. All right. That's the show. We'll see you next time. I am Peyton. I'm going to task you with something for the Monday show. You need to have a Masters quick hit. We need to get some Masters.
That was the plan. I was going to have probably whoever won it.
Good. Just making sure we're on the same page. I'm wearing my NBC golf hat, so now I'm in the golf mode. Anyway, hope you enjoy. We'll have some more news for Monday. Packed show this week, so plenty to talk about and plenty more as we continue the off season. All right, bye.